Press record now. Okay. And yeah, if there's anything anybody wants to share, by the way, or any questions anybody wants to bring up during this with Linda, and they don't want it recorded, just say, we'll pause the recording. You can have the conversation, then we can just resume recording. Okay. So Linda, this is Linda Pettit, Dr. Linda Pettit. I'm going to hand it over to you, love. Oh, it makes you sound good. And you make us look good. Like we keep good quality friends.
Mm. Well, I'm so delighted to be here. Just so delighted. And I was so looking forward to being with Jenny and Dave to share this event with all of you. I have such deep love, and admiration for them and for all the joy and magic they bring into the world. And I was just thrilled to have the opportunity to link hands with them and create something with all of you that we would all expand and grow and create from. So it was, I have to admit, it was a little bit of a shock to the system when approximately 3 or 4 weeks before I was supposed to come to Europe, because I had several other events before this one, Bill just suddenly developed very, very severe pain. And it culminated in an emergency hip replacement that he's now recovering from and doing just beautifully. And so I want to tell you a little bit about that experience, because to me, it's a perfect example of the magic of life unfolding. So, like I said, this came out of nowhere. It just really blindsided us. One day he was great. The next day he was saying, oh my God, my pain levels are at level 15 on a 1 to 10 scale. And we actually made an emergency trip home from an event we were doing up in Des Moines, Iowa, here in the United States, back to Phoenix. Left our car up there so he could see his doctors. And then what commenced was a magical series of people coming together to help him get into doctors, to help him get the images that were needed. And so we finally landed in a surgeon's office, and the surgeon said, you know what? I just had a cancellation. I can do this surgery for you in 2 days. And I said, well, I'm scheduled to go to Europe in 3 weeks. Doc, what do you think? Can I do that? Oh, yeah, absolutely. By 3 weeks, Bill will be walking, driving. You're good to go. By all means, go do your events. So we were so excited. And we went for his pre-op testing 2 days later, and everything seemed to go well. And then at 3:00 that evening, I got a phone call from the pre-op center saying, you need to wake your husband up and take him to the emergency room now. His heart is not in sinus rhythm. And I will sort of elide over all of what happened after that, but it was suddenly very apparent to us that the whole hip thing had uncovered another thing that was going on and that needed to be addressed. And it pushed the surgery back to the end of September. So it was clear to me that there was no way the situation was so dynamic. There was no way that I could commit to making the trip, and that I needed to be here with Bill. Now, fast forwarding again, a number of things happened, and he landed in surgery far earlier than we ever expected, and he's well on the way to the road of recovery. But I was devastated. I'm sure every one of you in the room has had experiences where something just blindsided you. Something came out of nowhere, an illness, a death, an opportunity. That's just life. It's just life. It's always serving up new circumstances, new events, new experiences for us to create from. Now, I knew enough about myself to know that it just wouldn't work for me to tell myself, oh, that's just my thinking, that I'm distraught about the loss of this trip, really in deep grief about it. And so I didn't do that. I just simply listened to the feelings as they were coming up, and I sat with them and honored them. Many people like Dave and Jenny had put a lot of time into creating this experience, and I felt very badly that that time appeared to be wasted at that point to me. And I had a beautiful experience. I was really struggling, deeply struggling. In fact, struggling so deeply that I was finding it hard to be patient with Bill. I was finding it hard to be of service to him, because every time he asked me to do something, because he could not do anything, he was really pretty much bedridden, I would have thoughts that, this wasn't fair, that I didn't deserve this, that he didn't deserve this, that I couldn't possibly find it within myself to simply drop all of that and be present to him and take care of him. Now, much of the time I did, but there were some times when I was fighting this bitter feeling of resentment, and it was really draining me. I really wanted to be someplace else, but in that moment, I had really lost my ability, my conscious ability to be there, because I was listening to life in that moment from a place of, when the universe gets a chance to shoot me in the foot, it will. So Bill and I had provisionally made plans to reach out to and have a session with a coach here in Phoenix known as Steve Hardison. I don't know if you've ever heard that name, but he's a very well-known coach. Some people call him the master coach. He's actually the subject of a book written by his wife called The Ultimate Coach, and it is quite a phenom. And I reached out to him and I said, Steve, Bill's down and out for now, and we can't do this session. It just doesn't make sense for us to do it until he feels better. And Steve agreed with that. And I said, and I'm just really struggling. Well, within an hour, there was a phone call, and I didn't recognize the number. I didn't answer it. I thought it was a spam call. Have any of you ever done that? Seen a number you didn't recognize and just said, I'm not even going to bother answering it, right? Well, I did that. So 3 or 4 minutes later, the voicemail came through, and I looked at it and it said, Linda, this is Steve Hardison. Call me. And so I did. And I had a most life-changing 7-minute conversation with him. 7 minutes. And what he did was listen to me from a place of deep, deep love. It came over the phone line to me. I could feel it in his presence. And he said to me something like, I don't remember the exact words, but he said to me something like, I could not respond to your email. How can I help? How can I help? There was nothing terribly magic in what he said. But one thing he kept doing over and over was saying, is there anything more you want to say about that? And so I told him I was so disappointed about not being able to go to Europe, and how it had looked to me like it was going to be an amazing opportunity to be out on my own without my husband, Bill. He and I had often spoken together, but this time it was going to be me joining with beautiful people that I really, really love, to create something that was collaborative and magnificent, and it had just fallen apart. And I sobbed, and Steve would listen and he would say, "Is there anything more you want to say about that?" And I say what came up. And then about 7 minutes into the conversation, he said, "Linda, is there anything more you want me to listen to? Is there anything more you want me to tell me?" And I listened inwardly and I said, "No, I'm finished." And he said something like, "I love you. I love you. I love you. And I so hear how hard this is. And I want you to just know that I love you." Now, I don't know this man from Adam, but the love he communicated over the phone was so incredibly powerful and present that I just sat there in awe, and I hung up, and I thought, gosh, I could tell people exactly what he said. I've told you exactly what he said, but can I tell them the place that he said it from? Can you convey that to anyone? That he said it from a place of deep, deep love, listening from a place of deep, deep love, from a place of deep, deep non-judgment, listening from a place of there are no conditions under which you can disappoint me. And that was so phenomenally healing. So phenomenally healing. And it took me back to my early psychological training. I have a master's degree in counseling from counselor education from Siena Heights University in Michigan. And I have a doctorate in counseling psychology from West Virginia University. But this took me back to the very beginning. A mentor I had named Bob Brady, who introduced me to Carl Rogers. And Carl Rogers was the first person I ever heard who clearly articulated the healing power of listening. And I went back and read some things about Carl and felt like I was reconnecting with something in my training and development that was really profound for me and really, really beautiful. That love and listening from love is so, so very powerful. So I talked to Bill and I said, "Bill, we've got to go see this guy. Do you mind if I go and have a session with him and myself? And then when you're better, you can go have a session." Bill said, "Sure, that's great. I think that's a wonderful idea." He was in no condition at that point to think about going anywhere. Just, we are so blessed and fortunate that this man, Steve Hardison, lives in Phoenix, actually Mesa. So he's 30 minutes from us. People fly from all over the world to see him. And a couple days later, I was sitting outside in the morning having my coffee, and I heard, "No, seeing Steve Hardison one time is not enough. You need to go buy a package with him. You need to buy a package of 5 sessions with him." Well, I'm enough of a student of intuition that I don't ever overlook things that just fall in like that. But my first thought after that was, oh my God, there's no way we can afford that. A package of 5 sessions with him, 10 hours, costs $45,000. 45,000 US dollars. Now, I can't imagine what that is in pounds, but it's a lot. And I said to Bill, I said, honey, I want to go do a package with this guy. And I was very aware that I could listen from two places. One was, we don't have this kind of money, which we don't. If any of you are out there thinking that Bill and I are rolling in the dough, we are not. In fact, we have very little available cash. And like a lot of people, a lot of the times we live sort of paycheck to paycheck because we give a lot away. We give a lot away free. And at another level, though, I knew I could listen from a place of, there's a way to do this. This is a potential that if I really want to create it, I can find a way. And so I started looking at options, and I talked to Bill and I said, I'm just having this intuitive sense that I want to go spend 5 sessions with this man. And Bill said, let's do it. Let's find a way. And we had to pull money from all over the place. But we looked at it and we said, this feels to us like we are putting our chips on the table. We are just putting all of them, all the chips on the table. And we are gambling because there's something here for us to hear and see. We just were both very convinced of that after reading his book, The Ultimate Coach, that he had had a peek into the mind of God, a different peek than Sid Banks's peek, but a peek, a really deep, deep peek. So I've had 4 sessions with Steve. And what it has done for me, I have one more this Tuesday. What it has done for me is really opened up the depth of the teachings of Sydney Banks. I experienced myself at seeing them, experiencing them, living them, coming from them in a whole new way. And that's my goal today, is to give you a taste of that. And, I'm also knowing that some of you may have already had this taste, that you've already seen it at this level and this depth. And I celebrate that and I honor that. This is not it's not a comparison game. There are no losers. We're all unfolding in this life in perfect timing. And this was perfect timing for me. So one of the things I want to talk to you about is this notion of, where do you listen to life from? And I'm using those terms because it just kind of resonated with me. But I could easily say, where is your consciousness level? It's the same thing. Same thing. You could call it something else. Where's your state of being? Where's your state of mind? I don't care what you call it. It's all the same thing. But all of us have places, a level of consciousness, a level of understanding, a level of listening that we look through as we perceive ourselves, others, and the world. And yes, a lot of that is fluctuating, as Sydney Banks pointed to. Our thinking is always going up and down, up and down. We're always moving back and forth between love and judgment, love and judgment. Sid talked about that. And so consciousness level is fluctuating. But for most of us, underneath that fluctuation, there's kind of a steady state, sort of a baseline, a foundation from which we listen from, that really has a lot to do with the fluctuations. And this is kind of a level or a layer of invisible thinking. Sid called those, in the very beginning, he called them games. He said, we all run games in life. That was his word for it. There were other places where he said, we all have characters. We all have scratched glasses that we put on as we view ourselves, others, and the world. And over our lifetimes, those games, those scratched glasses, those places of listening will become apparent to us. We'll notice them. And when we notice them, we have the possibility of an aha moment, an insight where we say, oh, that runs me. and I create from that place. So that's the second thing I want to talk about, that how we create from our place of listening. But first, let's talk a little bit more about our place of listening. And this, it just happens to be a funny story for me about Steve Hardison. I first began to be aware of him about a year and a half ago. I was reading on Facebook that a lot of people in the Three Principles world who are coaches were reading his book, The Ultimate Coach, and were coaching with him, or were talking about how much they were impacted by the book. So I got the book and I read it. And he was doing a free event here in Phoenix. And I don't want you to hear this as an advertisement for Steve Hardison. What I'm trying to talk to you about is my experience of Steve Hardison, but how I recognize that this is your experience of everybody and everything, and my experience of everybody and everything. So Steve Hardison started to do this free event in Scottsdale, I think, and it was live streamed. And Bill and I listened to it. We came and sat in this office and we just put it on my computer and we listened to it. And Steve stepped on the stage. He's a really tall man and very impressive. He was dressed in a very nice way. And he took his shoes off. He sat down and he took his shoes off, as I recall it. And then he stepped up to the microphone in bare feet and he showed his fingernails and his toenails, and he had his logo, which is a big white exclamation point on a black field painted on his toenails and his fingernails. Now, as I sat there, I see some of you smiling, as I sat there and I see this tall, impressive, very strong looking man strutting around on the stage with his fingernails and his toenails painted black with white exclamation points, my thought was, what an arrogant asshole. Yeah, that's kind of the reaction I had watching you. It's like I was like in my office here just going, oh my God, what an arrogant asshole, right? The next thing Steve said was, now some of you out there in the audience are thinking to yourselves, what an arrogant asshole. Busted. And then he said, and because of what you are thinking and how you are thinking, you will not hear a word of the magic and mystery that I have to say to you. Because the power is 100% in the listener. I want to say that again. The power is 100% in the listener. And that struck me so hard that day. I thought, oh my goodness, that's exactly what Sid Banks was talking about. It's another way to say it, but it really had a new power and authority for me. Yes, yes. If I persist in infusing that thought, this man is an arrogant asshole, through this entire hour or 2 hours I'm going to sit listening to him, I will hear nothing. All I will hear and see, all I will create is, this man is an arrogant asshole. And I was humbled. I was so humbled in that moment. I thought, oh, how many times do I listen to anyone from that place? Not necessarily from that place of, somebody's an arrogant asshole. That was kind of rare. But, like from the place of, I don't matter, from the place of, I'm not worthy, from the place of, that person is not trustworthy, from the place of, you get the drift. And all I see when I listen from that place is what I listen from. I literally create what I listen from. And in that moment, I really dropped my thought. You know, isn't that wonderful that we have such an easy ability to drop our thoughts? You know, we just drop them. And another one comes. And I sat there and I just listened, and I heard some amazing things that day. I think I went that day to hear that we listen from a place, and that we have all the power as listeners. We close things off, we open things up. We close things off, we open things up. We love, we judge. We love, we judge. We love, we judge. That's just the way it is. The brain is a judging instrument. It has to be. Otherwise, we wouldn't make it to the ages that we are. If my little 4-year-old grandson couldn't be developing the ability to judge that, yes, it's important to look both ways before you cross the street, it's highly unlikely that he would make it to age 6. But thank God for this beautifully evaluating, judging brain that we have. We get what we need to motivate through the physical side of life. But in the process, we forget our spiritual nature. And that day, Steve opened me up more deeply to my spiritual nature. And I watched him and I thought, this man is beautiful. He is so beautiful. He comes from such a beautiful place of love and celebration and possibility. Now, had I stayed in that thought that he was an asshole, I wouldn't have heard any of that. I'd have created a really different experience of that moment. This is important because when Jenny and Dave and I were talking about this event, one of the things we were really so excited about was to be able to talk about the intuitive way of love. And all my life, people have said to me, oh my gosh, Linda, you're so intuitive. Oh my gosh, Linda, synchronicities just like open up all around you. I wish I could live like that. Wish I lived on that plane. And I honestly got the idea somewhere along the line that I was special. I must be specially blessed that I'm so intuitive and that I see so many synchronicities, so many events, signs, signals that happen around me to let me know that I'm on a good path, on a creative path, a path of right. And I even had training, my psychological training, and my love of Carl Jung and his work suggested that, yes, some people are more intuitive than others. Some people come with a preference for that. Some people come with an ability to reach what Jung called the collective unconscious, a way of motivating that is subjective, that is far greater than the intellect. And then one day I talked to Sydney Banks about it. It was actually the first time I met him on Salt Spring Island. You all know who Sid is, right? Anybody there not know who Sid is? Yeah, you all know, right? So after Bill and I got married in 2003, that fall, we got married in September. I think it was around October. Sid called us up and said, I'd like for you and Linda to come to Salt Spring for a week to spend a week with me. And I think he wanted to check me out because Bill was one of his key teachers. So we went, and on the first day we met, the second day we met for lunch with Sid. We were in a restaurant in Ganges on Salt Spring Island, seafood restaurant, great food. And Bill went to the bathroom, and I thought, good, Bill's out of the way. This is my opportunity to ask Sid a question about intuition. So I said to Sid, all my life I've had intuitive knowings and premonitions, and I see synchronicities. And what do the 3 principles have to say about that? And Sid looked at me, kind of looked me straight in the eye. He was a very kind man. He just bathed in kindness. And I would have trouble like asking questions because when I was with him, my mind would just go really still, really quiet. But I got that one out. That was really important to me. And Sid looked at me and he cocked his head and he had this really beautiful smile. And in his Scottish brogue, he said, "Oh, my dearie, I don't know." And internally in my dialogue was, I don't know. This magnificent spiritual teacher doesn't know about intuition. And then his wife, Judy, who's a delight, just a delight, very quiet woman. I really relate to her because I'm really quiet in nature too. And Judy said, she elbowed him in the side and she said, "Oh, Sydney Banks, you do too know." And Sid said, "Well, what is it that I know?" And Judy said, "You know, Sid, that intuition is not special. Everyone can see outside the boundaries of time, space, and matter." And Sid smiled at Judy in this big way, like, "Oh, my love, yes." And he said, "You are right, Judy." And then he turned around, swiveled, looked me directly in the eye and said, "Linda, it's not special." Now, I was a mixture of things. I was kind of deflated, like, oh, I thought I was special. But I was also excited, like, wow, that means everybody is intuitive. That means we can all access this wonderful thing that I would love to even access more than I do, where I feel guided through life every single moment of every single day. It's not special. It's for everyone. Now, what was important to me about that is when I feel connected to an intuitive flow, I feel safe. I feel divinely protected. So like even when I had that intuitive sense of wanting to do a package with Steve Hardison, 5 sessions, I honored that because I knew there was something really special there for me and that it would be valuable. I would tell you that right now I would go, if I had a money in my bank account, which I don't, I would go to Steve Hardison. I would say, "Steve, I want to give you $45,000 as a tip." Because from that 7-minute conversation with him, that deep conversation of love and what flowed through the next 4 sessions with him, I moved through the experience of being with Bill with an extraordinary grace. We experienced more beautiful intimacy and self-searching and conversation about what comes next in our lives, and just a feeling of peacefulness that I think had a lot to do with the fact that he's now coming back just marvelously and beautifully, because I reconnected beyond my disappointment about the loss of the trip, beyond the fact that I don't feel like I'm a really good nurse, and nursing someone is really not my cup of tea. But I connected more deeply with this beautiful, beautiful unconditional love inside of me. And as I did that, the intuitive sense of what to do here, what to do there, how to handle this, how to handle that, how to create magic, just was so much more apparent to me. I owe that to Steve, that he gave me that experience in sitting with me and sharing with me what he sees. It was really beautiful. So I really love the intuitive way of love. Sid spoke about that. The first, I've done things with Jenny before, and I have said this before, maybe some of you have heard it, that the first thing that I had of Sydney Banks's work that just hit me was from The Second Chance. I believe it's on page 117, where he says, "Love is a living, breathing essence. Love is not just an idea. Love is a living, breathing essence, an essence that the wise can pluck from the air at will, and then, like a master artist, mold it into something beautiful. And in that 7-minute phone call, that's what Steve Hardison did. He sat with me in the eyes of love. He saw my beauty. He heard my humanness. He loved it. He did not judge it. And in that condition, my intellect quieted and got out of the way. The eyes of love flew wide open. The spirit just came through my soul and changed everything, changed the way I moved through my life. And I am eternally grateful for that. Every single one of you has shutters over the eyes of love. And your shutters are all different. My shutter was different. Some of the things in my shutters are, I am overlooked. I don't trust. I especially don't trust men. I am not worthy. Think about that. What are your shutters? We all have them. Now, you can imagine some of the stories I might have about where those came from. I could sit here and I could tell you the stories. If you want to know some of the stories, you can read my book, Leaning into Curves, which will be coming out in January. But the story is really not the point. The story is how, because of what I experienced, I started to judge myself. So when someone said to me, "You are disgusting," I judged myself as disgusting. And I started to carry that judgment, that thought, and harbor it, and hold it, and move through life as though that were true. Now, sometimes I pushed it out of the way and moved past it. Sometimes I did things to defensively prove it wasn't true. One of the fundamental beliefs I got, which is really funny, if I told you what my actual IQ level is, you would be astonished that one of the beliefs that I had was that I was dumb. Dumb. Mensa level intellect. And I thought I was dumb. Because of a few experiences. And to prove to myself that I wasn't dumb, I got a doctorate. Thankfully, something very profound did happen the day I stood on the stage and got hooded and got my doctorate in counseling psychology at West Virginia University, because it was like an insight happened. It wasn't really the degree. It was the insight that, oh my gosh, dumb people don't get doctorates. I did this. And in that moment, I started to move from a different reality. I started to move from a different level of listening, that I am a scholar. So the universe, God, mind, whatever you want to call that beautiful source beyond life, love, will work with everything. It will work with our judgments. It will work with the things that we do defensively. It will just create from it. It just keeps creating. So, so beautiful. But still, even though I was moving, creating from different places gradually, having little insights. I've not had the kind of insight that Sydney Banks had, where it was like, the heavens opened up and vast, I think the way he says it, vast stores of information were downloaded to him. That hasn't happened for me. It's been more like drip, 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 drip. I think it's been more like that for Steve Hardison. I think Bill Pettit says that's been more like that for him. But that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how often or how quick, it just matters that it is. But over the last 4 weeks, I've realized how there still was a little, like, have any of you ever had a sweater that unravels? Something just pulls a thread and the whole sweater starts to unravel. Well, the way this feels to me, it's like I've been moving forward, but my sweater has been hooked on a fence. A thread from my sweater has been hooked on a fence, and it's been holding me back just a little bit. I've been pulling against it, and the sweater's been unraveling, but I'm still held by it. I feel like in the last 3 weeks or 4 weeks, I took the sweater off and just said, I am done with that sweater. I am no longer going to create anything from I am dumb. That was a judgment I had of myself. Persons who said it to me are long gone. Long gone. Other side of the veil. Seeing from their enlightened places. I don't have to live with that anymore. Now, the key to doing that for me was to forgive myself for judging myself. It's interesting. Having studied Sydney Banks's work a number of years ago, I heard Sid's voice in my head, and it said, Linda, do a program called Life is Spiritual Theater. Tell them about Life is Spiritual Theater. It was floating around in my pool, and I heard those words. I thought, that's interesting. Did Sydney talk about Life is Spiritual Theater? So I went, I'm paging through the books, and sure enough, he talked about it in a couple places. So I thought, okay, I'll put together a program and call it Life is Spiritual Theater. And then I started to think about that. Okay, so I can talk about how we build character, and I can talk about storylines, plot lines. And then I thought, well, what are the key plot lines? When you write a book, there are thematic lines that go through the whole book. So what were Sid's thematic lines? And so I went and I read all his books again and listened to all the videotapes. And one of the things I realized that a very key plot line was that you can't have love without forgiveness. You cannot have love without forgiveness. They are two sides of the same coin. Absolutely inseparable. And when I was teaching that course, one of the things that I saw was that people often do a pretty decent job at forgiving others. We're all on a journey with that. And sometimes there are forgiveness places where it feels like we're being called to forgive the unforgivable. But it's amazing to me, really, how much most of us do in that area, forgiving really difficult things that people have done, that we've experienced. I saw another level of forgiveness many years ago when I was a therapist. I saw that people struggled with forgiving life, just forgiving life. Life is imperfect, life is messy, life hands us all kinds of things. It's a big moving matrix, and we never know what's going to happen. And lots of people harbor a lot of lack of forgiveness and resentment about things that happen. My house had a fire. I couldn't go to Europe when I thought I could. My husband died. You could name a bazillion of them, bazillion reasons why life is not to be forgiven. The blessed among us move past that. But I really saw that the most difficult thing for people was forgiving themselves. forgiving themselves. And they talked about that. I can forgive my dad for doing this, or my brother for doing that, or my uncle for doing that, and I can forgive the fact that life handed me XYZ thing to deal with, but forgiving myself, having compassion for myself, for whatever reason, that's really, really hard. So I really saw more deeply in the last month that in order to move forward to the next level of listening that I want, I needed to be sure that my house was clean, that I had forgiven myself. So I had to forgive myself for judging myself as dumb. Because the inner essence that I am, the God that I am, the love that I am, cannot possibly be dumb. I had to forgive myself for judging God, big G, and making my little thoughts, little g, little gods. No, I know better than God. I'm dumb. I remember years ago, my first mentor said to me, we were talking about my inferiority complex. And he said, Linda, inferiority complexes mask superiority complexes. And I was like, what? I get that even more deeply than I did then now, because I did get it. That it's just part of the human condition that we get into judging our deep nature as everything that it isn't. What is God? God is all-knowing. God is the universe. God is pure, unconditional love. God is wisdom. God is in divine intuition. God is the eyes of love flying wide open in divine intuition. But we're all sitting there, myself included. No, I'm not that. I'm dumb. I'm worthless. I don't matter. Others are not to be trusted. The world is not to be trusted. Well, that's not God. It's not divine mind. And this forgiveness piece is huge, because I think when you forgive yourself, oh, gee, I did that. I'm the one who's been holding myself dumb. I'm the one who's been holding myself as I don't matter. I'm the one who's been holding myself as I don't trust. I'm the one who thinks life doesn't give me the kind of guidance that it gives other people. That when we truly, truly forgive our judgments, there's such a cleansing of the soul that happens that the truth stands to emerge from that. So I was sitting with Steve Hardison, and I said to him, one of my judgments is that I am overlooked. And Steve looked at me and he said, yeah, I could tell that when you were sitting on my couch in my living room the first moment I met you. You create from I am overlooked. I didn't get that at that point. I do get it now. But he asked me to really sit with that and forgive myself for it, to see what Sid Banks called the psychological innocence in it. Because when I heard that the first time, when I had experiences of being overlooked, I was very small. And that felt very real to me. I saw the innocence of it. It doesn't make sense to judge myself for it. Oh man, look at all the opportunities you missed because you thought you were overlooked. That would be crazy. That's just repeating it. Just keeping myself stuck. No, with the forgiveness was like, oh, yeah, it's been innocent, but I've done that to myself, and I create myself, others, and the world from that place. And who am I really behind that? Well, what bubbled up for me, was, I am so brilliant. I can't possibly be overlooked. And when I said that to myself, the very first time I said that to myself, I started laughing so hard, just chuckling. Steve started laughing. We're both laughing. And he said, "Oh my God, your smile is so brilliant right now. It is so brilliant." And I said, "Because I feel the brilliance. I feel the joy of touching who I truly am at my source." In saying that, I am so brilliant, I can't possibly be overlooked, I have spoken spiritual truth, because that is my true nature. And it lit up my world. And I knew because it was so simple and so sweet, and it brought such a feeling of happiness and joy. That's what you are looking for. You are looking for those spiritual truths that when they bubble up from you, and they're all going to be different. You know, our eye prints are completely unique. There are no eye prints that are the same iris prints. Never have been, never will be. There are no exactly the same fingerprints. There are no exactly the same voice prints. The voice print that comes out of your throat, filtered through your vocal cords and your biomechanical structure, is completely different from anyone else's that has ever been or ever will be. You are completely unique. And you have completely unique characters, glasses, scratches on your glasses, games, whatever you want to call them, that hold you back in life, threads on your sweater that hold you back in life. And the spiritual facts underneath that, the flavor of them is going to be different for all of you. But when you find those spiritual truths for yourself, you will know you are the magic of life unfolding. And you will see intuition everywhere. And you will see synchronicities everywhere, because that is life. And you will create from that place. I feel quite certain that every single one of you sitting there has a dream inside of you, has a dream of how you would like your life to be. A beautiful dream. It might be as simple as, I just want to be at peace. It might be, oh my God, I want to be the best mother a human being can possibly be. It might be, boy, I want to live in total forgiveness for my life. It might be, boy, I've got a message to share with the world. I really want to get past myself and get it out there. Could be, I want to build a big coaching practice. Could be anything. And you have the power in you to create that. It was so interesting. I just finished writing my book. It's been in a process for a number of years, and it's going to the final proofreader on Monday. And I had to go back and get permissions for all the quotes in it. There weren't that many, but I went and looked and saw that I had 3 places where I had quoted Sid Banks. And I reached out to Lone Pine Publishing, Shane Kennedy, to ask him for permission to have those quotes in the book, which he graciously and beautifully gave. But what was fascinating to me was, of all the quotes that I could have picked to talk about in the book, or that write directly what Sid said, the one that I had picked was from In Quest of the Pearl, where Sid says, a jammed thought system must create an imperfect reality. A jammed thought system must create an imperfect reality. And I think it is an incredible intuition, an incredible synchronicity that was the quote that I picked to write about in the book. Because I could have picked dozens of others. There's two that I quote all the time. It's not that one, but that's the one that landed in the book. And I thought, oh, isn't that funny? Because that's really where I feel like I'm learning right now, that yes, if what I have around me doesn't look ideal, doesn't look the way I want it to look, if there's anything in life that feels out of alignment to me, that's only coming from one place. And that's the level of thinking that I'm creating from. The thought system I'm creating from. And if I change that level of thinking, if I see different thoughts, if I see my divine nature, it's not my little thoughts that I have to see, it's my divine nature. If I see divine thought, that imperfect reality will resolve itself in a new direction. I'll create a different reality from that. So if your life isn't magic and you want to create magic, there can only be one thing happening, and that is that you are in a thought system that is blocking the magic. It's innocent, it's very innocent. But if you can forgive yourself for ways that you've blocked the magic, really forgive yourself, feel compassion for your human experience, because life is very challenging for most of us. Then underneath that is the possibility of connecting more deeply with your true spiritual nature and creating from that, which is unlimited. And that's magic. That's the magic of life unfolding. That's where miracles come from. So I want to leave you with just one little example of that, and then take questions. Because this is how little it gets to me. I'm talking about big things, but I'm also talking about just little things. One of the things that happened during Bill's saga with his hip was that he had an MRI done at a center, and for whatever reason, trying to get through to someone at this center and get a copy of it on a disc so we could take it to a doctor was horrifically difficult. And I was getting kind of tied up in that. Oh my God, this is just terrible. This is awful. You know, I just can't believe this is so difficult. And I had a shift. I thought, wait a minute. I'm a creator. I can create magic here. I can create magic here, but I'm not going to create it listening from that place of this isn't fair and life shouldn't be treating me that way and people should be doing their jobs. I'm not going to create it from that thinking. I'm just going to create more of what I'm getting. So I got really quiet inside. And I thought, you know, people want to help. I know that. People, when they're in their right frame of minds, they want to help. They're good. They're caring. They're compassionate. They want to help. So I finally get a person on the line, and I say to her, I said, you know, I need your assistance. I want to create magic. Would you help me create a miracle? Now, how many times have people called you up and said that? I don't think she's probably ever heard that before in her life. And so she said, well, what can I do? And I said, well, you know, I'm having this challenge kind of getting through this system to a person to get this CD of my husband's MRI. And I think you and I can create a miracle and we can make this happen. And she rose to the level. She said, yes, let's do it. And so she got on the phone and she made calls and she came back and she said, I've done it. I got to a person, I got to someone who's going to have that CD ready for you when you walk into that center to pick it up. So I drove over there, and as I was going in, I thought, no, wait a minute. I want to approach this as a moment of a miracle, a moment of magic, a moment of deep grace. And instead of thinking about the place I was going into as an institutional MRI center, I started thinking about it as a temple of healing. I thought, this is a temple of healing. I am entering holy ground. I am walking on sacred ground. Every one of these people is doing their very best at their level of listening to be in service to healing. Now, do you think that changed how I walked into that building? Absolutely. As I opened that door, I felt like I was opening the door to the most important, most beautiful cathedral I have ever been in. And I walked in, and I walked up to the person who was at the reception desk, and I approached her as an acolyte of God. And I talked to her differently because of that. I wasn't just kind, I honored her. Oh, you know what I watched? I watched her head come up. I watched her shoulders square. I watched her look at me and say, how can I help you? And I said, I'm here to pick up a CD that you've been called about. And I believe you have it ready for me. And I'm so grateful for that. Absolutely. I'll go and look. And she went and looked, and she came back within 30 seconds with the CD. And then it was the most fascinating thing, because not only did she say, here it is, Linda. I'm so grateful we have this ready for you. And then everybody's shins went up. All the people, all the women at the desk, they were all women, started talking to me. And one of them said, we really want to help people. I'm telling you, it was a magic experience. Magic. And that's just a very sweet, simple little example about how a glitchy thing became a miracle. So I'll stop there.
I'm glad I managed to find unmute before they stopped clapping. I couldn't find my mouse. I was like, bloody hell, mouse, where are you? Linda,
Dave, I love you so much.
I love you as well. That was beautiful, love. I think that if you could have been in this room, I think you'd have felt the stillness. And hearing you speak like that, I can hear the freshness. In fact, my thing that I wrote down on the board for what I wish to get from this 3 days was freshness. And I certainly heard that through you. And so we deeply honor and respect you. Thank you so much. I think one of the things that came to me whilst you were talking was, even our capacity to dream up the idea that we are somewhat flawed, not good enough, need to be the best. Which when I ask questions about that, about myself, my desire to be the best, it came, my mind gave me an instant answer of, well, if you need to be the best, it's because you believe you're not good enough already. So that kind of deep-seated belief that many people have that they're not good enough, already, I can't help but think, isn't the point that, isn't it a miracle that even gets to be that we even have the opportunity to even be able to dream that idea that we're not good enough or whatever it be? Isn't that a miracle? It's like, if you go before the ideas of I'm not good enough and go to the point of the fact that we could even have the possibility to dream that idea, doesn't that show that somehow we are some fundamental, deep, irrational magic? And that's what we should be celebrating, and that's what we should be honouring, that deep, fundamental, irrational magic. But no, I'd love to open this. Thank you so much, love. That was wonderful.
Oh, that was so perfectly said, Dave.
Was it? I couldn't tell if it was or not.
That was so...
Has anybody got any questions? If so, you've got to come and talk to the corner. Any questions, any comments, any reflections? Do you want to come to the... Here's my mother even. That was nearly mum and mother.
Oh, yay. Mother, hi.
There.
Hi.
This is the mothership.
Linda, we were so disappointed that you couldn't come and stay with us. But what I can say is that if you're in the UK anytime, you and Bill are very welcome to come to stay with us, and we'd love to have you as guests. And thank you for today.
That's so sweet. Thank you. Tell me your name, your first name.
It's Margaret.
Margaret. Thanks, Margaret. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah,
I will get there. I will get there.
You have to. I hope Bill keeps making a good recovery, and then you can make it soon.
Thank you. Thank you. He's doing great. He's doing great. Yeah.
Thank you.
In fact, you're going to see him tomorrow morning or tomorrow afternoon. You'll see.
Yeah.
He's doing wonderfully.
With fun. Yeah. Oh, you've got my whole family now. Here comes my sister.
Hi. I was so looking forward to hearing you.
Oh, that was amazing. And the bit where he said
oh God, here it goes.
Power is 100% in the listener. Hit me like a brick in the face. So honestly, just thank you. It was just brilliant.
So true.
So true.
And it makes you, I think it's such a beautiful thing you've brought up, because you've basically, what you've described is the fundamental problem that all relationships that aren't harmonious face. It's not the relationship. It's like, I remember one day speaking to Jenny when Jenny and I first got together, and we were driving down south, and I wasn't feeling very connected to Jenny, and I told her I felt like I needed to tell her, but because of the way we got together and Rudy and Jenny splitting up and it all being very, very public, I felt really under pressure to make the relationship work. And I remember telling her that and saying, I'm not feeling our relationship anymore. And, I feel like I don't want it to, I just have to tell you. And she just looked at me and went, oh, you feel that too? I said, yeah. And she went, I was like, yeah. And she went, oh, I get that sometimes. She said, sometimes I look at you and I want to rip your clothes off. And other times I look at you and I just think, nah. That's honestly what she said. And it was like such a fucking shock. I was like, what? And then she said something. She said something that she went, but do you know the difference between you and me, Dave? I said, no. She said, you think it has something to do with our relationship. She said, I know it has everything to do with my state of being in that moment. And we drove down to London and we got into bed together. And I burst out laughing. I had the biggest insight. And Jenny said, what are you laughing at? I said, I've just had the biggest insight. And she went, was it? I said, I haven't got a clue. I haven't got a clue. But my relationship changed in a moment as the truth of that just went beyond my intellect, and my relationship came back. Now, poor old Jenny was left thinking, bollocks, what's happened to our relationship? But no, it was what you've spoken to there about 100% of the power is in the listener. It's so true.
So true.
It's so true.
And what's so especially true and beautiful about that is that's true about the listening we do to ourselves.
Absolutely.
The one the power of how we listen to ourselves changes how we show up in the world. And that is 100% invested in us. So if we come from that place of I don't matter, for example, that's how we will show up in the world. We will scream it to the world. I don't matter. And then we wonder why the world treats us like we don't matter. And we create what we see.
That's right.
That's like an advanced thing that maybe we can talk a little bit about on Monday, but it's really it's powerful getting that we create from the level we listen from. It's an evolving thing. I think we can get it deeper and deeper. I think I recently just got it a bit deeper, and I think Jenny her statement suggests to me she got it way before I did, but it doesn't matter who got it when or how, just that we really get it, because then it becomes what you and Jenny called freedom thinking. Then we have the freedom to create.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that you've shown up with today is as an example of eternal evolution. You know, it's like we're not here to get it. You know, we're here to experience. We're here to live as human beings, and we're here to grow and evolve. And I don't know, when I've had my experience, I realized in that moment the magic that was beyond this realm. I'd only scratched the surface of it. And when I listened to Sid, when I eventually came across Sid and I started listening to Sid, and I heard him say, if you combine all the consciousness of the whole planet, we're only scratching the surface of what we're talking about. You know, and knowing that this, what we are starting to unravel, this deep, loving mystery, is an eternal, ongoing evolution. That's a really exciting thing. To me, that's a really exciting thing. And it's like, for people here who maybe don't think they get it, or they should know it better, or they should know something deeper, to have you showing up and just say, you know what, I've seen something and it's blown my doors wide open again. I've seen something deeper. I think that's a really beautiful example you've just set. So I Linda, thank you, love. That's why we get you in. Anybody else, please? Any questions, any reflections, any comments?
I'd like to hear that all over again.
Let's give record. Record.
Oh.
It's a little bit refreshing to hear.
Here's Marie.
Hi.
Hi.
It's quite refreshing to hear someone so versed or experienced, I guess, or wise, to have a hiccup and to be right in the place where I find myself often. Listening to you allows me to feel at peace with knowing when I do that, it can just be, I can let it be, and it can go for many days or time or whatever. But the fact that I have the wisdom of listening to people like you and Jen and Dave, I can snap out of it quicker, or just observe it quicker. So I'm not jumping on it or following with those thoughts or the feelings or whatever's happening. I'm just observing, but I'm doing that with less judgment and less pain, and quickly being able to just disassociate from it.
Oh, that is so amazing. That is so beautiful. So, so sweet. And, you know, I think, like, as I look back when I was really struggling with what was going on with Bill, I said a prayer at one point. I said, you got to help me here, God, because I can't get there right now to that feeling I know I want to be in. I just can't see how to get there. I'm just so overwhelmed. And then I heard this, I literally got guided, write an email to Steve Hardison to tell him that you can't come for a while. An hour later, he's on the phone to me, and I have a 7-minute conversation that changes everything. We're not alone in this universe, are we? Are we? We're just not. And we're all learning that. I jokingly say, but I mean this. I think this is really funny. I mean, I really think this is funny that I am quite certain that, 25 years from now, whatever it is, let me see, I'm 70. So we'll say 25 to 30 years from now, when I'm lying on my deathbed and I'm hearing the little machine beside me go beep, 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 I might have a thought even at that point, oh my goodness, is God going to overlook me? There still might be a thought. But I know that underneath that, there's going to be another thought. I am so brilliant. You can't wait to meet me. Here I come. That's so beautiful that we have those options, and that it's evolving. It's an unlimited evolvingness. I loved what you said, Dave, that they're just, there's the way you put it, that there's this beautiful, mysterious magic that we can't even begin to scratch the surface of. Wow. That's so profound, so powerful. And I'm going to spend my life doing the best I can to scratch the surface and to know that when I jump the light fantastic, it's mine. All of it.
Thank you, beautiful.
Thank you all. Oh, I could feel your spirits and love your smiles and your deep listening and the quiet and the stillness you've gifted me with. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Linda.
I think I'm going to see you all again on Monday. Is that correct?
I'm not quite sure. Not quite sure. We'll be in touch if that's all right.
All right.
I'll speak to you about it. it.
Oh, yeah. I remember there was some issue, right? With we'll get in touch. Okay.
But we were hoping for a later, like in a week's time, if you could.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Yes, I got it. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Email. Yeah, I did. I remember now. So enjoy your time with Bill tomorrow, and I'll meet you down the road a little bit.
You will.
All right.
Yeah.
Lots of love.
Linda, thank you so much. Let's have one more round of applause for Linda.
That's so sweet. And
thank
Dave
you so
and Jen, would you please hug that little girl for me?
Yeah, I don't know where she's running down the corridor screaming. So, Linda, thanks so much, love.
All right. Bye-bye.
God bless.